Indeed, despite our occasional differences, our countries increasingly share a larger vision for the future of this vital region. It is a vision of democracy, individual rights, opportunity, and the rule of law. A vision, most importantly, that we share with the vast majority of people from North Africa to Central Asia. Our ability to translate this common vision into action is being tested. It's being tested across the region, but nowhere more than Syria. It is now believed that now more than 12,000 lives have been lost, and still Assad escalates the violence, going from infantry and snipers to tanks and artillery, to unleashing plainclothes thugs to commit mass atrocities, and now to helicopter gunships. Syria's recent attack on a Turkish fighter jet fits into this troubling pattern of escalation. And all the while, Assad's slaughter is being enabled by Russia and Iranian weapons, and there are even reports of Iranian operatives on the ground in Syria. Clearly, this is not a fair fight. In April, thanks to the special efforts of the Turkish government, Senator Joe Lieberman and I visited a Syrian refugee camp in southern Syria, whose population, by the way, has since doubled. I have seen my share of suffering and death, but the stories of those Syrians told still haunt me. Men who had lost all of their children, women and girls who had been gang raped, children who had been tortured. And none of this was the random acts of cruelty that sadly occur in war. Syrian army defectors told us that killing and rape and torture is what they were instructed to do as a tool of terror and rape and torture and intimidation. So if I get a little emotional when I talk about Syria, that's why. The situation in Syria cries out for U.S. leadership, not just to save Syrian lives, but to support our ally, Turkey, when they need our support the most. The conflict in Syria is becoming a strategic threat to Turkey. The country is already facing massive flows of refugees, and it is welcoming them by the thousands. Turkish pilots are now shot down over international waters, according to Turkish leaders. And the longer this conflict grinds on, the worse it gets. The more sectarian divisions harden, the more al-Qaeda gains influence, the more the Syrian state disintegrates, and the more Turkey is faced with violent chaos on its border. The United States needs to devote a fuller measure of its power to help end the conflict in Syria as soon as possible, not just because it's the right thing to do, and not just because it will be a strategic defeat for Iran, but because it can help to consolidate a new kind of relationship with Turkey. It can show the Turkish people and government that America is willing to take risks for the sake of their security and invest in their success, and that we are not an unreliable partner or a declining power, as some in Turkey allege. We cannot afford to squander this opportunity. The conflict in Syria is but one part of a larger story that is now unfolding across North Africa, the Middle East, and Central Asia. It is a story of struggle by people throughout this region to reconcile Islam with democratic politics and a secular state, to subordinate the power of armed groups and military forces to elected civilian authorities, to resolve ethnic and sectarian differences through politics, not violence, to balance the dynamism of free markets with popular demands for equitable economic development, and to do all of this while waging a broader struggle against the subversive and hegemonic ambitions of Iran. Turkey is now a central player in this epic story. And as I travel through the region again and again, it is clear how inspired people are by Turkey's success and how much they wish to emulate it in their countries. Modern Turkey has never had greater influence to shape the development of its region, and with that power comes an even greater responsibility to lead by example. More and more people in North Africa, the Middle East, and Central Asia are now looking to Turkey for lessons to guide their own struggles for justice. It is minorities, religious liberty and tolerance, freedom for journalists, relations with neighbors, and the integrity of democratic institutions. In short, Turkey's ability to set the highest standards of democratic development has never been more critical. In all of these endeavors, Turkey and the United States can accomplish far more together than apart. It's this simple, my friends. If the broader Middle East comes to be defined more by peace than war, more by prosperity than misery, and more by freedom than tyranny, I believe future historians will look back and point to the fact that two of the world's preeminent democratic powers, Turkey and the United States, transformed their long-standing alliance to address the new realities of the 21st century. If we keep this vision of our relationship always uppermost in our minds, there is no dispute we cannot resolve, no investments we cannot make in each other's success, and nothing we cannot accomplish together. Thank you very much.
Senator McCain, that was inspiring, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions. We have microphones that the interns will bring to you. I think the first hand I see right here.
Senator Bill Jones, Executive Intelligence Review. The debacle with the Goldman Sachs recently showed that the measures of Frank Dodd-Bill will not be sufficient to stave off a new bubble. Now is the time to again begin discussing the Glass-Steagall, reinstalling Glass-Steagall to prevent a hyperinflationary blowout. There are now 70 sponsors to that in the House. There must also be motion in the Senate. This week is very important. As you know, there's pressure on Germany to start to reinflate the European economy. Geithner is also discussing, according to reports, giving support to that, which could lead to a hyperinflationary bubble, more funny money in the system. Glass-Steagall could stop that. If Congress has the will and the courage to do that against the sabotage of the White House, I think that they will, the view of the American public to the Congress will increase rapidly as this thing moves forward. Isn't it time to begin doing something on that?
It's an important issue, but it's not about Turkey.
Well, let me just say very quickly, Dodd-Frank was intended, in all due respect, to make sure that no institution in America, financial institution in America, was ever too big to fail. No one believes that that's the case. We know that these institutions have grown greater, much larger rather than smaller, and Senator Cantwell and I have introduced legislation for restoration of Glass-Steagall. My friend, I count votes. There's not the votes there. Too much influence by the financial institutions and the special interests, and so we may be facing another bubble. I don't know, but clearly we haven't changed the fundamental challenges that that are still there with the passage of the quote Dodd-Frank bill. And thank you for that question on Turkey. I would be more than I know that Ambassador Tan here has also been one who supports the Glass-Steagall restoration as well. Thank you, Ambassador, for your support there.
Go back to Turkey.
Could you introduce yourself,
Yes,
please?
my name is Hadi Nikunajat. I was born in Iran. I live in Florida. I happen to be here today, just stopped by. You mentioned the last statement, what the partnership between America and Turkey is going to help to movement of the North Africa and Middle East. But honestly, if you look at it, I just heard General Ham yesterday, he mentioned that the commander of the U.S. Military in Africa, African command they call it, I believe, he said there is 3 major terrorist groups, Al-Qaeda, the Nigerian group called Boko Haram, something like this, and some group in Mali and Somalia, they make an alliance. The question is this: if West or whoever behind the special interest create this. They took away the Gaddafi out of the power, which is nobody want to defend that, the stupid guy. Don't get me wrong. But the mess is this. Because of that, we got more problem in Libya. We got more problem in all Western Africa. The question is, whose really benefit is this? Is the people of the Africa or you Middle Eastern? It's just, what is going on here? It's just basically a special interest. The financer in the world finance both of the war, and the question, who's the winner? I mean, you can use Turkey, you can use Iran, you can use the Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan. We get more war, and the bottom line is, America has better position today as an influence in Middle East with a 1 million or 500,000 soldier in North Africa and Middle East compared to 20 years ago. Which is more influence at?
Okay,
that's the question.
That's a good question. I'll try and make my answer short, but the fact is that nearly 2 years ago now, there was a young man in Tunisia who was a college graduate, who couldn't get a job, who was selling vegetables, who was mistreated badly in front of his friends by the police, and he burned himself to death. That lit a fire that will not go out. It will not be confined to the Middle East. So the Arab Spring, in my view, is misnamed because Vladimir Putin is a lot more uneasy today than he was before. The Chinese leadership is there's unease there. It's worldwide, and for us to have wanted to keep the status quo in the Middle East or the world would be a terrible mistake because change is taking place. So the job the United States of America should have, in my view, is to help channel this and assist these people who are seeking the things that we have always held as our responsibilities and our duty, that all of us are endowed with certain inalienable rights. So when I travel, I will be traveling at taxpayers' expense this break, and I'll be, among other things, going to observe the elections on July 7th in Libya. Libya has a long way to go. But the fact is 80% of the people in Libya have registered to vote, and I will predict to you there will be a massive voter turnout. Contrast this what commentators on both far right and far left said at the time we were assisting the Libyan people's legitimate rights in their struggle against Muammar Gaddafi. And that was, oh, there's probably al-Qaeda, we don't know who they are. I hear this over and over and over again. They're probably al-Qaeda, we don't know who they are. The United States shouldn't be involved. We should be involved. We should be involved. And yes, there's going to be rocky times in these countries. The latest election in Egypt brings great uncertainties as to our future. But they had a free and fair election, generally free and fair election, and they have elected a new president. And they're on the path to democracy. This is what we want to happen in Syria. Tunisia has got huge economic problems, but they have a freely elected, functioning government. So all I'm saying is that the United States should assist, help, but not dictate. When the United States starts dictating to people, that's when the resentment rises. So I am optimistic, but there will be ups and downs. I would like to remind you again that after the Berlin Wall fell and the collapse of the Soviet Union, many of these former Iron Curtain countries had their ups and downs. I'm sure we recall. We look back now, it's a smooth path. It wasn't. Some of them elected a government, then later on elected the communists again. So, look, the world is changing, tectonic changes. The world's economy is shifting the Asia-Pacific. This Arab Spring is people are asserting their legitimate rights. And the United States of America, in many cases, is the example. You know who else is the example? Every place I go in this region? Turkey. We want to be like Turkey. That's what they say. A lot of them. I wish more would say we'd like to be more like America. But they see this reconciliation between Islam and democracy. And I've made my criticism, and I made them very clear. But when you see what people want, They understand that this reconciliation between fundamental Islam and democracy has to be reconciled, and that is what is happening in Turkey, with certainly some difficulties as well. And I stand here not as a critic, giving with full and certain knowledge that we are totally gridlocked here, not too far from here, and the American people are not very happy with our performance either. So I hope that responds to your question.